The dinner rush at Harbor Diner was chaos that night. Sizzling pans, ringing orders, and the constant hum of tired conversations. Emma wiped her hands on her faded apron, her shoes soaked from the spilled coffee she'd cleaned earlier. Her shift was supposed to end at 9, but as usual, the manager, Greg, had barked at her to stay longer. "We're short-staffed," he'd snapped. "Don't start whining, Emma." She had just smiled weakly. She couldn't afford to lose another job. Emma's mother was sick, and the medical bills were piling up faster than she could count. Every dollar mattered, but even with exhaustion written all over her face, she never stopped greeting customers with a smile, the kind of smile that made people feel seen. That's when he walked in. A man in his late 50s, wearing a worn-out jacket and carrying a small backpack. His hair was messy, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. He took a seat in the corner booth near the window, his eyes scanning the menu nervously. Most of the other waitresses avoided him. He didn't look like someone who could afford even a cup of coffee. But Emma noticed the way his hands trembled slightly, the tiredness in his eyes. She approached him softly. "Good evening, sir. Can I get you something to eat?" He hesitated. "Just a coffee, please. I'll pay you back later." Her heart ached a little. She'd seen this before, people too proud to ask for help. "No worries," she said with a gentle smile. "How do you take it?" He looked up surprised. "Black, please." "Thank you." Emma went to the counter, poured a hot cup, and added a slice of pie on her own bill. Greg saw her do it. His jaw tightened, eyes narrowing like a hawk spotting prey, but Emma ignored him, setting the coffee and pie in front of the man. "You didn't order this," he said quietly. "I know," she replied, "but it's cold outside. You look like you could use something warm." He smiled faintly, eyes glistening. "You're very kind." "Emma, is it?" he asked, reading her name tag. She nodded. "Just doing what I can." A few minutes later, Greg stormed over. "Emma, my office, now!" Her stomach sank. She knew that tone. Inside the cramped office, Greg slammed the door. "You think we're running a charity here? Giving free food to strangers? You're costing us money." Emma stammered. I'll pay for it myself." He just looked hungry. "That's not the point." Greg barked. "You follow rules or you're out." Her heart pounded. She couldn't afford to be fired. But before she could apologize, the old man's voice came from the doorway. "Excuse me, sir," he said calmly. "If there's a problem, it's on me." Greg turned sharply. "You stay out of this. She's done here." The man's eyes darkened, not with anger, but quiet disappointment. "Then maybe your diner doesn't deserve employees like her," he murmured. Greg didn't care. He grabbed Emma's apron. "You're finished. Get out." Tears welled in her eyes as she stepped outside into the freezing night. The man followed, clutching his backpack. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "You didn't have to defend me." He smiled softly. "Emma, you did the right thing. Don't lose that." She nodded, blinking away tears. "I don't know what I'll do now." He looked at her, a deep, knowing look. Sometimes life takes everything away, just to give you something greater. And with that, he walked away into the night, disappearing in the falling snow. Emma stood under the flickering streetlight, jobless, heartbroken, unaware that the man she had just helped wasn't who he seemed to be. The next morning, Emma woke to the sound of rain tapping against her apartment window. Her small one-room space smelled faintly of instant coffee and hope worn thin. Her mother coughed from the next room, and Emma rushed to make her tea. "Did you sleep, Mom?" she asked gently. Her mother smiled weakly. "You're up early, sweetheart. Heading to work?" Emma froze, her heart twisting. She couldn't bring herself to say it. Instead, she forced a smile. "Yeah, maybe later." But the truth was harsh, and she had been fired. No notice, no pay, nothing. Just tossed out for being kind. She had exactly $23 left in her wallet and rent due in 3 days. Still, as she watched her mother sip the tea, Emma reminded herself she'd done the right thing. She couldn't turn away from someone hungry. That's not how her mother raised her. By noon, she was walking through town asking for work, anywhere. The grocery store, the laundromat, even the gas station. But everyone said the same thing. "We're not hiring." Her shoes soaked through with rain, her spirit dimming with every rejection. Finally, she ducked into a small coffee shop to warm up. The bell above the door chimed softly. "Welcome to Morning Brew," said a cheerful barista behind the counter. "What can I get for you?" Emma hesitated, staring at the menu. Everything was more expensive than she could afford. "Just water, please." The barista smiled kindly and handed her a cup. "You can sit as long as you like." Emma found a corner seat, gazing out at the wet street. Her reflection in the window looked tired, eyes heavy, hair frizzy from the rain, the faint tremble of uncertainty in her lips. She didn't notice the man who entered a few minutes later. The same man from the diner. He wore a clean coat now, his hair combed back, but his kind eyes hadn't changed. He walked up to her table. "Mind if I join you?" Emma looked up, startled. "You again?" "Are you okay? You look different." He chuckled softly. "I'm fine, thanks to you." She tilted her head. "You cleaned up nice." "Sometimes a hot shower makes all the difference," he said warmly. "I wanted to thank you, Emma. You treated me like a person when others didn't." She blushed slightly. "You don't have to thank me. It's just what anyone decent would do." He smiled, the kind of smile that carried stories behind it. Not everyone thinks that way. They talked for a while. He asked about her dreams, her family, her life. Emma spoke honestly and about her mom, her struggles, and her wish to someday open a bakery where people could eat even if they couldn't pay. When she finished, he said quietly, "That's a beautiful dream." "Emma," she sighed. "Dreams don't pay rent, though." He studied her, almost as if measuring her heart. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small card. "Come to this address tomorrow morning," he said. "There's something I want to show you." Emma frowned. "Why, what is it?" He just smiled mysteriously. "Let's call it a thank you." Before she could ask more, he stood and walked out into the rain, leaving the card on the table. It had only an address and a name, Daniel Cole. She tucked it into her pocket, unsure whether to believe him. Maybe he was just a kind stranger. Maybe he was another disappointment waiting to happen. That night, she sat by her mother's bedside, turning the card over in her hands. "Who's Daniel Cole?" her mother asked softly. "Just someone I met," Emma replied. "He wants me to meet him tomorrow." Her mother smiled faintly. "Follow your heart, sweetheart. You never know which moment changes everything." Emma looked out the window, the rain easing into a soft drizzle. Something about that man, his calmness, his eyes, felt different. When morning came, she put on her cleanest clothes, tied her hair back, and caught the early bus across town. The address led her to a tall glass building downtown, with gold letters across the entrance. Cole Enterprises. Her heart pounded. Could it be? The same man, Daniel, was standing at the door, smiling like he had been waiting all along. "Good morning, Emma," he said warmly. "Welcome to my world." Emma froze at the entrance, her hand still gripping the strap of her worn purse. The massive glass building before her shimmered in the morning sunlight, reflecting her nervous face back at her. Cole Enterprises. She had heard of it, one of the city's biggest companies, owned by a mysterious CEO no one really saw in public. Daniel smiled, his eyes kind but knowing. "Come on in, Emma, don't look so scared." I don't understand," she stammered. "What are we doing here? Isn't this—" "Yes," he interrupted gently. "This is my company." Her jaw fell open. "Your company? You mean you work here?" He chuckled softly. "Not exactly. I own it." The words hit her like thunder. He owns it? Her mind flashed back to that night at the diner, the old jacket, the backpack, the trembling hands. He didn't look like a CEO then. You were pretending," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "I was. I've been conducting what I call undercover evaluations. I visit places anonymously in restaurants, shops, hotels, just to see how people treat others when they think no one important is watching." Emma's breath caught. "So that night," he smiled gently, "that night I was just a tired man in need of kindness. And you gave it, without asking for anything in return." Her heart thudded in her chest. "But I lost my job because of it." Daniel's expression softened. "And that's exactly why I wanted to see you. Sometimes the world punishes good people before it rewards them." He gestured toward the elevator. "Come with me. There's someone I'd like you to meet." They rode to the top floor, the soft hum of the elevator filling the silence. Emma's reflection in the mirrored wall looked out of place, her plain blouse and scuffed shoes beside Daniel's tailored suit. She clutched her bag tightly, wondering what awaited her at the top. When the doors opened, a spacious office bathed in golden light appeared before her. Huge windows overlooked the city skyline. Assistants typed quietly at sleek desks, and everyone seemed to straighten the moment Daniel stepped out. "Good morning, Mr. Cole," one greeted respectfully. "Morning," he replied with a nod, then turned to Emma. "This is Emma. Treat her as my personal guest." The assistant's eyes widened slightly, but she smiled politely. "Of course, sir." Daniel led Emma to his office, a vast room with shelves of books, a long conference table, and family photos on the wall. He motioned for her to sit. "Emma," he began, "I read the report on Harbor Diner after that night. Turns out the manager's been pocketing employee tips and mistreating staff for months." Emma blinked. "You investigated?" He nodded. "I had my team look into it. And yes, the diner's under review now. But that's not why I brought you here." He opened a folder on his desk and slid a document toward her. "I'm starting a new community initiative, a foundation that provides meals and job training for people in need. I want you to help me run it." Emma's heart stopped. "Me? But I'm just a waitress." Daniel leaned forward. "You're not just anything. You're kind, selfless, and brave enough to do the right thing when no one's watching. That's exactly the kind of person I want leading this project." She stared at the papers, her eyes welling up. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he said softly, smiling. "You've spent years serving others. Let me help you serve even more and finally have the life you deserve." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Daniel, I can't thank you enough." He stood and handed her a tissue. "You already did, that night at the diner." Emma laughed through her tears. "I thought you were just some lonely man." He grinned. "I was, until someone reminded me what compassion feels like." For the first time in a long time, Emma felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope. As she left the building that day with a job offer and a new beginning, she looked back at the golden letters above the door, Cole Enterprises, and she realized something profound. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness finds its way to the biggest hearts. A week later, Emma stood in front of a brand new office sign that read, "The Cole Foundation, helping hands for every heart." It still felt unreal. Just days ago, she was a waitress struggling to survive, and now, she was leading a project that could change lives. Daniel had given her the role of community outreach coordinator, a position she didn't even know existed until he described it. Her job was simple but powerful: find people in need, feed them, train them, and help them rebuild. As she walked through the bright office that morning, she felt a wave of nervous excitement. "I can't believe this is real," she whispered to herself. Daniel entered, smiling. "First day nerves?" Emma laughed softly. "More like first day disbelief." He chuckled. "You'll do great. Just remember why you're here, not for the paycheck, but for the people who need hope." His words settled in her heart like a promise. She spent the next few days learning the ropes, meeting the small but passionate team Daniel had gathered: volunteers, social workers, and cooks who believed in giving second chances. They started their first mission at a run-down neighborhood on the city's edge. Broken windows, faded walls, and weary faces told stories of struggle. Emma and her team set up a small pop-up kitchen in an abandoned parking lot. The smell of warm soup soon drifted through the air. Children peeked out from corners, drawn by the aroma. Emma ladled steaming bowls into their hands, her smile genuine, her eyes glistening. "Thank you, miss," one little boy said shyly. Emma knelt to his level. "You don't have to thank me, sweetheart. Everyone deserves a warm meal." As she worked, Daniel watched from a distance. There was something deeply fulfilling in seeing her light up lives the same way she had once brightened his. Later that evening, as they packed up, Emma sat on the curb, wiping sweat from her brow. Daniel handed her a bottle of water. "You did good today," he said. "So did you," she smiled. "I didn't know CEOs could cook," he laughed. "You'd be surprised how many lessons you learn in a kitchen, especially when you start from the bottom like I did." Emma turned to him curiously. "You started from the bottom?" Daniel nodded slowly. I wasn't born rich, Emma. I grew up in a small town. My parents worked in a diner just like the one you did. I used to watch my mother serve customers with the same kindness you showed me that night. That's how I learned. People remember kindness more than success. Emma's chest tightened. So, that's why you went undercover? He smiled faintly. Exactly. I wanted to see if that kind of heart still existed in this world. And then I met you. For a moment, silence filled the air, the kind of silence that carried meaning without words. In the following weeks, the foundation grew quickly. Local businesses donated food, volunteers signed up, and people started talking about the young woman who had turned compassion into action. News channels covered her story, the fired waitress who became the face of hope. But not everyone was happy about it. One afternoon, as Emma returned from a community meeting, she found an envelope on her desk. Inside was a letter from Harbor Diner's manager, Greg. Her hands trembled as she read, "Emma, I heard what you're doing now. Maybe I was wrong about you. The diner closed after your story went viral. People stopped coming when they learned what I did. I lost everything, but maybe I needed to. I'm sorry." Emma stared at the letter for a long time. A part of her wanted to be angry, but another part felt peace. She took a deep breath, grabbed a pen, and wrote back, "Dear Greg, everyone deserves a second chance, even you. If you're ever ready to start fresh, the Cole Foundation is always looking for volunteers." When Daniel read her reply later, his eyes softened. "You truly have the rarest kind of strength, Emma. Forgiveness." She smiled faintly. "Kindness isn't real if it stops at revenge." That night, Emma stood on the foundation's rooftop, watching the city lights shimmer below. For the first time in years, her heart was full, not with fear or uncertainty, but with purpose. She whispered into the cool night breeze, "Maybe losing that job was the best thing that ever happened to me." And somewhere deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. A few months later, the Cole Foundation had grown beyond what anyone expected. What started as one pop-up kitchen had become a citywide network of food programs, job training workshops, and community shelters. Newspapers ran headlines like, "Fired waitress becomes the face of hope," and "CEO and waitress team up to change lives." But for Emma, it wasn't about fame. It was about faces. The tired mother smiling over a hot meal, the little boy running home with a full lunchbox, the ex-waiter who found purpose as a volunteer. Every story reminded her why she started. That morning, Daniel entered her office with his usual calm smile. "Big day today," he said. Emma looked up from her paperwork. "The grand opening of our new community center, right?" He nodded. "And the mayor's coming too." "But that's not the only surprise." Emma raised a brow. "Oh, you've been full of surprises lately." He grinned. "You'll see soon enough." The ribbon-cutting ceremony drew a crowd. Cameras flashed, reporters whispered, and volunteers lined up proudly in their blue Cole Foundation shirts. Emma stood beside Daniel, holding the scissors with trembling hands. "Ladies and gentlemen," Daniel said into the microphone, "today isn't about a company or a name. It's about one person's act of kindness that changed countless lives. Months ago, I walked into a small diner, tired and hungry. Only one person there saw me as human, a waitress named Emma." The crowd murmured. Emma felt her cheeks flush as Daniel continued. "She didn't know I was a CEO. She didn't do it for attention. She simply cared. That's the kind of heart this world needs more of. So today I dedicate this center to her and to kindness, compassion, and courage." He turned to her, smiling. "Emma, this is your legacy." The audience erupted in applause. Tears blurred her vision as she cut the ribbon, the sound of cheers echoing through the air. She could hardly believe this was real. Her life, once falling apart, had become something far greater than she ever dreamed. After the ceremony, Emma wandered through the new building, bright classrooms, stocked kitchens, and a cozy corner labeled Harbor Cafe, a tribute to where her journey began. She smiled softly. Daniel joined her, hands in his pockets. "Thought you'd like that little touch," she laughed gently. "You remembered everything." "Of course," he said. "That place may have taken your job, but it gave me something priceless, the chance to meet you." Emma's eyes shimmered. "You changed my life, Daniel." He shook his head. "No, Emma, you changed mine." I'd built an empire, but I'd forgotten what it meant to feel. You reminded me that success means nothing without humanity." They stood in silence for a moment, watching children run past with laughter. Then Emma turned to him and said, "You know, I think Mom would be proud." "She would," he said softly, "and so should you." Later that evening, Emma returned home, sitting by the same window where she once worried about rent and bills. Now sunlight poured into the room, warm and golden. Her mother's picture sat on the table, smiling back at her. Emma whispered, "You were right, Mom. One act of kindness really can change everything." Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Greg, the former diner manager. "Hi, Emma. I took your advice. I've been volunteering at the shelter for 2 weeks now. It feels good. Really good. Thank you for not giving up on me." She smiled through her tears. Forgiveness had completed the circle. That night, Emma sat on the rooftop of the foundation, city lights twinkling below. Daniel joined her with 2 mugs of coffee, black, just like the one she'd served him that fateful night. "To kindness," he said, raising his cup. "To second chances," she replied. They clinked their mugs gently, watching the stars above, silent witnesses to how one small act of goodness had rewritten both their destinies. Ending. Call to action. And as this story reminds us, kindness costs nothing but can mean everything. So if this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Kindness Tales Live, where real hearts, real stories, and real compassion shine through every tale. Because you never know, your one small act of kindness could change someone's whole world.